In a jukebox graveyard, there's a record that once owned America. Not charted, not did well, owned it. Number one. For weeks, sometimes months. And today, you could play it for a room full of country fans and get nothing but blank stares.
It's a country music classic written by our friend Justin Tubb. Lay a little bit of it on us.
Okay, then
That's the strange, uncomfortable truth about the 1960s country charts. Being number one didn't guarantee you'd be remembered. Sometimes it just guaranteed one perfect moment, and then silence. 12 songs, 12 artists who, for one single stretch of weeks, were the biggest thing in country music.
just in case your love for me should.
Bigger than Johnny Cash was that week, bigger than Merle Haggard, bigger than Buck Owens. And then the charts moved on, and so did everyone else. We're counting them down. Some of these stories are funny. One of them is going to break your heart. Stick around for that one. You'll understand why when we get there. Let's start at number 12.
Just call lonesome 77.
Number 12. That's My Pa, Sheb Woolley.
And in the fall of the year, when the fields got white, we'd start picking cotton about daylight and on Saturday.
Picture a Hollywood backlot in 1962. A working actor, you'd recognize his face from a dozen westerns before you ever knew his name, walks off a TV set and into a recording booth. His name is Sheb Woolley. And 4 years earlier, he'd done something almost embarrassing for a serious actor to admit. He'd written and recorded a novelty song about a one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people-eater. It sold over 1 million copies. It made him rich. It also made him, in the eyes of Nashville, a joke. So when That's My Pa, a goofy, grinning story song about a father who talks his way out of every disaster, climbed to number 1 on the country chart, it wasn't just a hit. It was validation. Proof the purple people-eater guy could still land in the genre that mattered to him most. It held the top spot. 1 week. Real, verified, undeniable. And then it vanished so completely that Woolley wouldn't reach number 1 again for over a decade. Here's the twist nobody talks about. The actor everyone dismissed as a novelty act had, for 7 days, been more successful on the country chart than artists 3 times his star power. Being number 1 didn't erase the joke. It just proved the joke had range. Number 11 takes us to a songwriter who was about to become one of the most important names in Nashville. And almost nobody remembers how he got his start.
Daylight and on Saturday, oh, and take it all to town. Then along about the
Number 11. Mama Sang a Song, Bill Anderson. There's a version of this story where a shy kid from South Carolina writes songs for other people his whole career and never gets his own moment in the spotlight. That's almost what happened to Bill Anderson. By 1962, Anderson already had a reputation, the quiet one.
It was a bad land farm and 7 hungry mouths to feed.
The writer's writer, the guy other artists went to when they needed a hit. But writing hits and having hits are 2 very different careers. And Anderson hadn't cracked number 1, not yet. Then came Mama Sang a Song, a spoken word, almost sermon-like tribute to a mother's faith and sacrifice. The kind of record that shouldn't have worked in an era leaning toward honky-tonk and heartbreak. It worked anyway. It became his first number 1. Here's what most people miss.
Maybe our home was blessed when Daddy would say, Mama, sing a song.
Anderson would go on to have a career spanning 6 decades. write hits for artists across generations, and become a Country Music Hall of Fame member. But ask a casual fan to name his first number one, and you'll get silence almost every time.
That as my daddy's back grew weak, my mother's faith grew strong. And
the song that opened the door is the one nobody remembers walking through. Number 10 belongs to a song that lasted exactly 1 week at the top, squeezed between two of the most iconic performances in country history.
sang a song.
Number 10, Ruby Ann, Marty Robbins.
He was a very complex person. He was not...
Marty Robbins had already given country music El Paso. He'd already built a legacy that would outlive him by decades. So in January of 1963, when Ruby Ann hit number one, it should have felt like just another notch on an already legendary belt. Instead, it lasted a single week,
But still it's only you, big shot, with your money can't buy.
and then got swallowed whole by the song that came right after it. Because the record that knocked Ruby Ann off the top wasn't just any song. It was Don't Let Me Cross Over, the only number one a husband and wife duo would ever have. And after that, a bluegrass instrumental from a hit TV show.
One sentence, or my mother always said this about me. If somebody asked her, said, "Can you describe your son in a..."
Took over the chart entirely. Ruby Ann got caught in the crossfire of one of the most crowded, chaotic stretches in chart history, and it's been quietly erased from the Marty Robbins story ever since. Here's the irony. For one of country music's most decorated performers,
True love a funny thing. Big man, you got money.
having a number one this forgettable is almost stranger than never having one at all. Speaking of that husband and wife duo, their story is next, and it's a lot more bitter than sweet.
You got money in your hands, so what? You've had a table for two, but
Number 9, Don't Let Me Cross Over, Carl Butler and Pearl.
Butler and a big hit record of Don't Let Me Cross Over.
Carl Butler had been kicking around Nashville for years, a solid but unspectacular presence on the Grand Ole Opry. Then he started performing with his wife, Pearl, and everything changed. For about a year. Don't Let Me Cross Over is a song about temptation, about a marriage under threat from an affair. And in one of those quiet ironies country music does so well, the real-life husband and wife singing it together turned it into the only number one of their entire career. The song didn't just hit number one once, it bounced up there across 3 separate runs in early 1963, racking up 8 weeks total in its final stretch alone. And then, nothing.
Can I do when your eyes keep saying
Carl and Pearl never returned to the top of the chart again. For 1 year, a married couple singing about a marriage in danger owned country radio. Then the moment closed, like a door nobody remembered to prop open.
oh, I know if I lose you, not a dream will I.
Up next, the song that turned a sitcom theme into bluegrass history and did something no bluegrass record had ever done before.
Help myself, don't let me cross over.
Number 8, The Ballad of Jed Clampett, Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs. Here's a sentence that sounds made up, but isn't. The first bluegrass song to ever reach number one on the country chart was written for a television comedy about a family who strikes oil and moves to Beverly Hills. Lester Flatt and Earl Scruggs were already respected bluegrass pioneers by 1963. But respected isn't the same as commercially dominant. Bluegrass lived on the outskirts of the industry, beloved, influential, and consistently passed over at the top of the charts. Then, the Ballad of Jed Clampett, the theme from the Beverly Hillbillies, did what no banjo-driven record had managed before. it went to number 1. Twice. In 2 separate runs. It's the only number 1 Flat and Scruggs would ever share. The twist is almost poetic. Bluegrass finally broke through, not on the strength of a heartbreak ballad or a barroom anthem. But riding the coattails of a network sitcom about a family of accidental millionaires. The genre's biggest chart triumph came wrapped in a punchline. Before we go further, if stories like these are the reason you watch this channel, hit subscribe. There's a real risk that music like this disappears from memory entirely if nobody keeps telling these stories. That's what we're doing here. One forgotten record at a time. Now, back to the countdown. Number 7, Giddy Up Go, Red Savine.
It wind and wander over mountains and valleys and deserts and plains.
In 1965, a trucker turned radio personality named Red Savine had a very specific formula. Sentimental, spoken-word stories about life on the highway.
His first snow, he wasn't old enough to say too many words. He just kept a-hollering, giddy.
Delivered in a voice built for late-night AM radio. Giddy Up Go was the record that proved the formula worked. A story song about an aging truck driver reuniting with the son he'd given up years earlier, driving the very rig his father once drove.
What I named the old truck, Giddy Up Go. Things wasn't too bad.
It hit number 1 and held it for 6 weeks in early 1966. For a moment, trucking songs weren't a novelty subgenre. They were the sound of mainstream country radio. Here's what got lost.
Go. Oh, I've made a lot of friends at all the truck stops. And some of them would...
Savine would spend the rest of the decade and beyond mining that same trucker sentimentality vein, eventually becoming better known, almost as a cultural punchline, for later spoken-word hits than for this, his first real chart-topping breakthrough.
Well, today I was barreling down old 66 when...
The song that built the formula got buried under the formula it built. Number 6 is a mountain that, for 9 straight weeks, nobody in America could stop singing about.
Stacks glowing black coal. And she pulled around and back in front of me.
Number 6, Wolverton Mountain, Claude King.
On Wolverton Mountain, if you're a-looking.
There's a real place behind this song, a literal mountain in Arkansas, named for a real man named Clifton Wolverton, who, according to family legend, kept fiercely protective watch over his daughter.
Tell Clifton Flowers if for spring.
Claude King turned that local legend into Wolverton Mountain in 1962, and the country tied Marty Robbins for the longest unbroken run at number 1 that entire year. 9 straight weeks. 9 weeks at number 1 is not a fluke.
Mountain, no Clifton Flowers, he might take my...
It's a phenomenon. For that stretch, King wasn't just a country star, he was inescapable. And it was also the only number 1 of his career. King kept recording, kept charting.
Or sweeter than honey and
kept working well into the 1970s. But he never came close to that mountain again. One song, about one real mountain and one overprotective father, was the single moment his entire career would be measured against, whether he liked it or not.
Wolverton Mountain, it's too lonesome. Down.
Number 5 held the record for the longest number 1 run in country chart history for nearly 50 years, and almost nobody today could name it.
Right to hide his daughter from...
Number 5, Walk On By, Leroy Van Dyke.
On some street in town, pardon me if I don't.
Before Buck Owens, before Florida Georgia Line, there was Leroy Van Dyke. In late 1961 into 1962, Walk On By, a slow-burning tale of a chance encounter with an ex-lover,
In a dimly lit corner at a place outside of town.
spent 19 consecutive weeks at number 1 on the country chart. 19. That wasn't just a hit. That was a record that stood, untouched, for roughly half a century, until Florida Georgia Line finally surpassed it in the 2000s. Think about what that means.
Oh, so why pretend? Just walk on by.
For nearly 50 years, the single longest chart-topping reign in country music history belonged to a song most modern country fans have never heard of, by an artist most modern country fans couldn't pick out of a lineup. Van Dyke had other hits.
I love you, but we're strangers when we meet. Just
He wasn't a one-song artist by any means. But nothing he ever recorded came close to matching what Walk On By did. 19 weeks of total chart domination, quietly forgotten by almost everyone except the people who study the numbers. Sometimes, the biggest records leave the smallest footprint in memory. Number 4 introduces a young woman whose very first single set a record that stood until Taylor Swift finally broke it.
here's Leroy Van Dyke.
Number 4, Once a Day, Connie Smith.
Smith to sing that big hit record for you right now. Connie?
Connie Smith was 23 years old, barely a professional singer, when Once a Day became her debut single in 1964. It went to number 1, and it stayed there for 8 consecutive weeks, the longest unbroken run by a solo female artist in the history of the country chart. That record held for decades. It wasn't broken until 2012, when Taylor Swift's We Are Never Ever Getting Back Together finally topped it by a single week. Think about the scale of that achievement. A 23-year-old, on her very first release, set a bar that no woman in country music would clear for nearly 50 years. And yet Connie Smith, despite a long and respected career and eventual Country Music Hall of Fame induction, is rarely mentioned in the same breath as the genre's biggest legends by casual audiences today. Here's the deeper irony.
She sat around and cried her life away.
Her record wasn't broken by another country artist digging into the tradition she came from. It was broken by a pop crossover superstar decades later, in a completely different musical landscape. The bar Connie Smith set outlasted the entire chart era she set it in. We're closing in on number 1.
And once a night,
But before that, one more chart topper. A song that, for a brief moment, made a forgotten Nashville legend the biggest name in the format all over again.
I wish you were gone. Here's once a day.
Number 2, I've Been Everywhere, Hank Snow. By 1962, Hank Snow was already a veteran. He'd racked up chart toppers back in the early 1950s, when Billboard still ran separate charts for sales, jukebox plays, and airplay. But since the magazine unified everything into a single hot country chart in 1958,
Man, I've been everywhere, man. Round the desert spare, man. I breathe the mountain air, man.
Snow hadn't reached number 1 even once. Then came I've Been Everywhere, a rapid-fire recitation of town names strung together into one dizzying travelogue. It went to number 1, his first under the modern chart system.
Glen Rock, Black Rock, Little Rock, Oskaloosa, Tennessee, Hennessy, Chippewa, Spirit Lake, Rand Lake, Devil Lake, Cradle Lake, Beach.
He wouldn't top the chart again until 1974. Here's the strange afterlife of this record. Most people today who know I've Been Everywhere know it from a Johnny Cash cover decades later, or from commercials, or from countless other artists who've taken a run at it since.
Louisville, Nashville, Knoxville, Omaha, Bakersfield, Jacksonville, Waterville, Costa Rica, Pittsfield.
Almost nobody connects it back to Hank Snow's original chart-topping version, sitting at number 1 in the summer of 1962. The song survived. The man who made it a number 1 hit quietly disappeared from the story of his own record. And now, the story that stayed with us the longest. Number 1. Number 1. Lonesome 77203. Hawkshaw Hawkins.
A country music classic written by our friend Justin Tubb. Lay a little bit of it on us.
Okay, then
In March of 1963, a small plane went down outside Camden, Tennessee. On board were several of country music's brightest stars, flying home from a benefit show. One of the names on that flight would become one of the most mourned losses in the genre's history, Patsy Cline.
Just in case your love for me should ever...
But she wasn't alone on that plane. Hawkshaw Hawkins died in the same crash. 2 months later, in May of 1963, a song Hawkins had recorded before his death, Lonesome 77203, about a heartbroken man waiting by the phone for a call that never comes.
Well, I keep the telephone beside me.
Reached number 1 on the country chart. It was the only number 1 of his entire career, and he never lived to see it happen. Sit with that for a second. A man spends years working toward the top of his industry. He finally gets there, and by the time the achievement arrives,
Want to call and say you change your mind if you...
he's already gone. Every other song on this list eventually faded because the world moved on. This one faded because the man who made it never got the chance to move on with it. There was no follow-up single, no victory lap, no interview where he talked about finally making it to number 1.
Thanks, guys. Thank y'all. Appreciate that.
And then he would say,
Just a posthumous chart position, and a silence where a career should have kept going. That's the real story hiding underneath all 12 of these songs. The charts don't care about legacy. They care about this week, this moment, this single. Being number 1 guarantees you nothing about tomorrow. Not fame that lasts.
he'd lean into the microphone and he'd say, and don't say anything to your enemies that you don't want your...
Not a name people still recognize. Not even the chance to enjoy what you built. 12 songs. 12 moments when the entire country music format bent around a single record. Almost all of them forgotten. Maybe that's the real lesson buried in this list.
Number changed today, although I hate it too.
That the charts were never really a record of greatness. They were just a record of a moment. And moments, no matter how big, don't ask permission before they disappear. If this kept you watching until the end, that's exactly why we make these. Somebody has to remember the songs that made history.
Book now, so you'd better write it down.
And then vanished from it. Subscribe, and we'll keep digging up the ones everyone else forgot.